Okay, and we are back. So tonight we're going to start with our intro to CSS. And if you still have it open, I would keep your intro to CSS project app that we just started open, because when I start adding things, you can code along with me.
I will also say it might be better to actually counter that. It might be better not to try to code along with it.
That too, that's fine.
Because it's best to take notes. Because she'll be going at an accelerated pace, and if you're fresh and learning, it's better to be here, ask questions, see what's going on, take notes, because you will get the code samples.
Yes.
And a video, and documentations of how to do it. So you have the resource to do it. It's best to be here and talk to us. What it is you're learning about. Again, I encourage you not to try to.
See, my learning style is like, I code along, I read it, do all that. But if that's not yours, fair point. Okay, intro to CSS. We already did this review, but we'll go over again. HTML is hypertext markup language. What is semantic versus non-semantic elements in HTML? Do we remember? I admit we breezed over that quite quickly on Thursday.
The nav would be a semantic one because the tag is actually describing what the
Yes, so semantic is a tag that describes what it is. So nav, NAV, for navigation. You might be using that, let's see. This would probably be a nav, potentially. I've not looked at GitHub's code, so I don't know, but that would be a good place to do it. Article, figure caption, those are all semantics because they describe what they do. The non-semantics would be things like header 1, H1 through H6. They do decrease in sizes, but you can always change that. That's just more of they're supposed to be written in decreased importance on the page. So you always want an H1 to be the biggest thing, the most important. Other non-semantics are P for paragraph, IMG for image, and A for link. And then the infamous div, div, that is just a division on the screen. So what is CSS? CSS is cascading style sheets. That's another one that sometimes developers don't always remember what it stands for. So if you know it, you're better than some. It's what allows us to make a website look how we want it to, a way to apply styles to our website both globally and singularly, and it's a set of rules. I like to think of it, if the HTML is the skeleton, this is your hair, your eyes, your nails, all of that. This is the visual side of it. Was there something you wanted to add, Mark?
Yeah, this is kind of all the extra stuff that makes it look pretty. And that's really the way it is. Like HTML is the content. It's what the user really cares about. If you strip away the CSS, you still have the content, you still have a very useful site, right? I will argue that Craigslist is one of the best UIs out there. Yeah, Craigslist, the black text, white background, no images, no fancy borders, is one of the best designed and laid out websites I've died on.
I will argue the Space Jam website is the best designed website, and it hasn't changed since 1996.
That's a different story. But CSS is everything that makes the website look pleasing to us and look good. You know, there's design, there's UI, there's UX, there's color theory, there's artistic liberties. All of that is done using CSS. It's what makes the content look nice.
So with Craigslist, there's not a lot of extra stuff. It's mostly just like text laid out and just do it.
Reddit's also kind of like that. Reddit has more style to it, but again, it's pretty bare bones in that sense. So CSS, as I said, it's a set of rules. The rules contain a set of properties which have values set to update how the HTML content is displayed. And then we also have selectors which reference HTML tags to apply styles specifically to them. I have examples of that on this page. And that is quite small. And that does nothing.
You might be able to pinch and zoom.
Haha, well done. Okay, so here we have our basic HTML. This is very similar to what you'll have in your Intro to CSS app that we created, right? We have the HTML, head, body, H1, hello world, P, paragraph. This is my first CSS example. So now over here, H1, that is us calling, that's a selector. We're calling, what? Yes, sorry. I thought that was Mark saying something. I was like, what? That's why I was like, why are you mumbling back there? So H1, that is we're collecting the selector. We're saying, hey, go find the H1 in our code, and we want to add blue color. That is the property. The value is blue. So we're saying color, that's the font color. The next property is background color. We say we want to make it yellow. And then we said we want to add a border of 1px solid black. Okay, so that's, properties have different values you can use. We can't put, like in color, we could not put in this 1px solid black. It would be like, what are you talking about? That's not how it's going to work. That is specifically saying we want a border that is 1 pixel thick. That's how big the line is. We want it solid versus dotted or dashed, and we want it in the color black. So if you did font size, those would be in pixels. Again, you can't put 16 pixel for color. So every property does have its own set of values. I will show you in, let's close some of these screens. We'll do a little live coding on this. So I have my intro to CSS. And we'll call this. And I'm just putting, again, lorem ipsum. If you see that, that's just gibberish to fill up space rather than typing a bunch of things out.
So as Liz add some content, I'll add some notes there as well. As you notice that she had H1 squiggle brackets, then a whole bunch of stuff, right? That stuff of values, that's how we actually style our HTML, by giving it different properties and values. So we care about controlling stuff like borders, we'll get to margins and paddings, even position on the page eventually. All those have a name and a value. The values have very specific values that go along with it. And what gets those properties and values is anything that matches with the actual what's called selector. For her first example, which I'll come back if you don't mind, but it's H1. That's saying let's take all H1s and style them with these properties.
So I'm going to add that in here. I'm going to go into screen, open that up. These are some basic ones that we give you. They're pretty good starting ones. We're just saying that HTML code on the page needs to be a height of 100%. We want the body to have no margins with a minimum height of 100%. And that's the root font. The basic font will be 16.
We'll touch on that later.
We'll do that. I'm just letting you know this will come up with every app. You don't need to worry about it too much. So I'm going to do H1. And I said color blue, background color yellow. And I did border 1px solid black. So you always have to have, as Mark was saying, you name your selector. My selector here is H1. And then you need to do the curly braces. And then for CSS, you will always do the property, colon, value, semicolon. Yes?
Two things to add here. One, can you zoom in a little bit? Just
Oh, yes.
one click. Thank you. And this brings me to the second point. You notice how now she's in the separate file. She wasn't indexed in HTML. Now, in the same public folder, she's now in screen.css. So she's in the same directory, just adjacent to it. Can you show us how we look it up in the head of the HTML?
How we look what
Take
the,
link up the screen.css. Go to our index.html file.
oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry, I thought we were talking about dev tools there. I was like, you're jumping the gun.
I am jumping in.
Okay.
On line number 8, that is where we're saying, hey, this is an index.html, and it references, it links to that screen.css. So all this style that we put in the CSS will be applied to this image.
Yes. I could create another CSS file, name it something else. It's not going to hook up to this unless I reference it here. So I could have a whole bunch of these. I could be like, hey, this link here, I want another one with my other name. I could reference, depending on what you're doing, 5 different style sheets.
You have to type that in while you're styling?
If you are adding more style sheets, this will come hooked up to screen CSS
For,
automatically.
Yeah, for today, in the next 6 weeks, nah.
No.
Just put everything inside of screen.css.
Yes. I was just saying that you can have multiples if you need to.
So when it says link REL style sheet, what does the REL style sheet actually denote? That it's a type of.
Yeah, it's the style sheet means that it's a cascading style sheet. It's a CSS. Trying to think what rel.
It just helps the browser know
Yeah.
that it's a CSS.
Yeah. So it's just telling you it's a CSS file. But we can Google it if we want to find that out.
I don't even know what style options there are, like what colors there are available and stuff.
There are, I will provide some links to some sources for that. There are over 300 different properties with different values. So I even to this day still Google things because I don't know all of them. I found a new one that was scrolling with a touch was the value, but it was a scroll property that I had no idea about until this week.
So, 3 things that I'll pitch you for that. One is use your ID. As you'll see throughout the course of the night, and while you work on your projects, VS Code will give you suggestions and give you a list of all possible ones. So that's a really good start whenever you're in the thick of things. There's also, we have a list of properties we like, very common properties, and like what they are and like what they do. That will be attached to your home. There's also something called MDN, Mozilla Development. That is kind of the online Bible for all things front-end development. Yeah, all right, it's amazing.
I have that page up, or I have that site up
And that
every day, basically.
will also be in your homework. That's what lists out the bajillion or so CSS properties that there are. Don't feel pressure to memorize them all. I don't have to memorize them.
I'm going to shrink this down a little bit because we don't really need to see all of it, but I'm leaving it open so you can see how the project is put together and managed. But I'm shrinking it because we don't need to have that take up half the page. Okay, so I've added the H1. I have saved it. So now you can see Chrome wants to translate lorem ipsum. But now we have exactly everything I said. I said, go find that first H1 tag, or go find the H1 tags. And I want you to make the font color blue, the background yellow, and add a 1 pixel width border around it of solid black. Okay. The other example was P. So I only have one H1 on that page, so it's only applying it to one. But for my paragraphs, I want them all to have red font. So I'm typing again, color, colon, red, semicolon. I'm going to save it. And this is where it has gone through and it has found all the P tags. I added 3 different ones. So I have this one, the whatever, whatever, and another paragraph. Those are all separate P paragraph tags. And it is going through and is providing those to everything. If I wanted to get a little more specific, maybe I don't want all the paragraphs to have red text. I just want 1 or 2 of them to have red text. I would come in here. We already have one in here. We have a class. We're going to add classes to it. Classes are just another selector. It's a bit more specific. This is for if you have a couple of things with the same style to it. So I'm going to add on this first paragraph, class equals, and this has to be done in the HTML, quote. It can be a single quote or a double quote at any point as long as you have the start and the end the same one. So you'll see sometimes I might do double quotes, sometimes I might do single quotes. For this, it doesn't matter. I'm going to say red text is the class name I'm giving this. Okay? So I've decided I just want that first paragraph to have red text. I will come in here. Class is represented in the CSS with a period in front of it. That's it saying, hey, this is a class name. So I will do red text. I will save it. And now only one of them has red text. Okay. I can add this to multiple things. I could even, so I'm going to add it to the second paragraph. Another class equals red text. And now that one has it. If I wanted to, I could add red text here to H1. And that overwrites the H1 because it's saying, it's going through and it's saying you have these selectors for the H1, but now it has a class name and that class takes it more specific. I'm going to erase that because I don't actually want my H1 to be red for this. That was just an example of how you can go further into it. Now, let's say I want to make this whatever, I do what I want. I want to make that bigger. I want it red, but I want a bigger font. I would maybe use an ID. An ID is even further specificity. Did I say that correctly? But it's being even more specific. I like to think of it as a class. There can be multiple things with a class name, but there's only one thing with an ID. So if we put it in perspective here, if we gave all of us a class name, our class name would be test drive. We could each have, if I was an HTML element, I would be class test drive. Greg would be class test drive. Journey, everyone would be class test drive. I want to add an ID. An ID is individual. So my ID would be Liz. I am in test drive, but my ID is Liz. So I will say larger font. Okay, I save that here. So now it has an ID, but obviously nothing's done because I haven't put anything in the CSS to change that. An ID is represented in CSS with the hashtag or the pound symbol. I know it has a proper name and I can't remember it. Mark, do you remember the Octothorpe? That's it. So I would do exactly kind of like how I did red text with a period except for the Octothorpe. And then I say large text. Right? That's why, or larger font, sorry. You must always know what the name is because if you call it not by the right thing in here, it's not going to work. So I have Octothorpe larger dash font, the curly braces. Now I'm going to say font. And this is what Mark was saying, that I did not want it to do that. It'll give you a whole bunch of options here. So it's giving you suggestions. You can either, cycle through it, pick one. I know its size, so I'm just going to start writing it. Font dash size. Let's make it 30 pixels. And see then, again, giving us suggestions. put a semicolon at the end. And ta-da! It is much larger. So that is about 30 pixels. How are we doing so far? Any questions?
Why did you not do that? Why did you do the thing before you went to screen? At the screen?
Do
Why
what?
did you do it in index?
Why did I add the ID in there?
Yeah.
Um, The class, that's just a personal choice of how I do it. You could do it in reverse. I could decide that I want a class name of orange background. We're gonna make this a glorious website. And I would say background color. Orange. So again, I put it in there. There's nothing here. I have declared that as a class. That's why it's got a period at the end of it. And I will add it here. No, I will add it on this one. Class equals orange. Did I call it orange background? Yes. Orange background. So it's there. So it doesn't matter which order it is as long as it's the same name and you're applying it to what you want it to have. Mark, you look like you had something to add.
Actually, you said what I was going to say, is the whole linking it to it. Even though they're two separate files, they still need to know roughly about each other. Yeah, they're working together, and that thing that's working together is that selector. Whether it's a class name, a ID, or a tag, or anything like that. As we explore more, we'll see different variations there, and that can get quite complicated. But that selector is the bridge that talks between HTML and CSS. So can you say that?
I see that you used a hash for the original example. Well, hash is for the ID name.
A hash is for ID, yeah,
And so the dot before
for class.
background is just a class.
Yes, if it's a dot, it'll be a class, and so then you have to put in the HTML, you have to refer to it as a class.
Class equals.
If it's an ID, you have to refer to it as an ID.
Okay.
And then you have to have that hashtag in front of it.
Awesome.
So that's the big thing. You can do everything with just classes. Most things, people don't use IDs unless they're getting really, really specific about something. I just like to tell you that that is an option from the get-go.
9 out of 10 times use classes.
Yeah,
So the convention is to use classes over ID tags.
yes. The idea is ID is for one thing. This is important when we get to things like buttons and pressing them with JavaScript, which is why you need to know what an ID is now, but for most of your styling, class is fine. Okay. And admittedly, I kind of skipped a good chunk of, I kind of just went with it in here. So we'll see what I am forgetting. Property and value. So the property is the first part, background color, height, font, weight, etc. Value is what comes after the colon. There are over 300 different CSS properties to choose from. We did class selectors we use to apply more specific rule sets. If you don't want to apply it to every p tag, but to a select few, you would add class equals your class name. Obviously, whatever you want to name it. As long as you spell it the same way and you capitalize it the same way. That is a big thing, is that you do need to have the same capitalization in the HTML and the CSS. Classes are represented in CSS with a period in front. Again, example dot your class name. So ID selectors, they're even more specific. If you want to apply to only one specific item in the document, you would add ID equals then whatever you want to put there. And IDs are represented with that octothorpe, the hashtag, as we said.
Which will Octo what?
Octothorpe, is that?
Octothorpe, yes.
Octothorpe? That's a cool word.
Okay. I will send this link out. This is actually a really good section of the handbook that will walk you through in even more specificity. This is due to time constraints. Obviously, I'm not going to take you through all of it, but it also gives you a list of a lot of different CSS properties that we like. So I will Slack that out to everyone.
Slacker.
In fact, I will do that now. Where are we? We are in here. Ah, I see Corey's in here.
And Slacker.
Ooh, that copied more than I wanted it to. Okay. But yeah, this is very good reading. I highly recommend it. It should have links as well, I think, to MDN. And it has illustrated examples. And your homework for tonight, which will be due next Tuesday, is expanding your world. In this assignment, you will end up with a simple styled web page published on the web. Create a new website that shows some basic styling and formatting using HTML and CSS. This website should help share some information for one of your favorite hobbies. But you can also have fun with it, try a whole bunch of different things out. We don't get into it in this, but CSS, there's also animations and all sorts of things you can do. I don't expect you to do the animation stuff because it's kind of complicated, but CSS has so many things you can do with it. So it's a lot of fun.
Is the animation supported very consistently across the modern browsers, or is it still
No.
not?
Yeah, the animations, there's, as you dig into CSS, since we're mainly just using Chrome, you don't need to worry about it too much. But sometimes you might see like a -MOZ in the source code. And that would be that it's a special property you have to add for Mozilla. So speaking of that, I'll actually show you. I showed this on Thursday, but we'll go into it some more. Command Option I opens your dev tools. So this is, don't worry about console right now. You want to focus on elements. Because in here you can also see if you are confused as to what something is hitting. You can see that this is the H1. We have a paragraph with the class name on it. We have this paragraph with the ID and the class. And then also down here it shows you for each. You can highlight this section and it says, okay, it has this ID that does this CSS property. And then you have also this class name on it. So that can be handy if you want to see if you are trying to figure out why something's not working. Maybe you have a couple of class names that do contrary things and you need to figure out why something's going on. This is a handy section to be open.
Yeah, we'll be here a lot
Yes.
because CSS is a very fun magical land of a whole bunch of things, as we'll find out. And this is our window to what's going on. If we have
Yes.
something overriding something not applying, something applying twice, all that nonsense which we'll run into, it'll be right here. It's also fun to do this to other sites.
We'll go to Space Jam because I mentioned it earlier.
Not that it's Space Jam, because I don't know what kind of tomfoolery is happening there.
A lot of tomfoolery, but it has a Google tracker, I think, Google Tag Manager. So someone's updated it fairly recently.
Wow.
But yeah, so you can see this has not much has changed since 1996 on this website. The Google Tag Manager is the only thing. But you can kind of dig in and you can see center, and it highlights on the page where you are.
Let's go to a more site.
What site do you want to go to?
Let's show them MDN.
MPM?
MDN.
MDN.
You know, the thing
Yes.
about-
Well, I just didn't know what you were saying. Is it just MDN? No, it's
Maybe
Mozilla
that
something.
works. Maybe that works.
Developer. There we go.
So this is the website that we mentioned that is like the Bible, the holy source of truth. There's a lot of documentation here, but it's technical at times. It's okay to read it. It's okay to but if you look at the dev tools over on the right hand side, you'll see a lot of the things that we talked about.
Sorry, I clicked on something and it started updating it again.
But here you see HTML tags, you see some semantic stuff, some not semantic stuff. Can you zoom in on that just a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So you see, so scroll down, we have a header, we have a footer, we have a main. If you look at the footer, it has an ID and a class. So that class nav footer has a whole bunch of properties to it, which we can see down at the very bottom, in the right-hand corner of the screen, what those properties are. We can play with them, we can toggle them, we can change stuff.
Oh, cool, you can toggle.
Yes.
Yeah, we could even do like right here.
And you can change it too.
Oh,
No, it didn't go through.
Background color black.
Yeah, you can change stuff here. It's only temporary.
Yes, as soon as you.
You see it. Yes.
Oh, I was gonna say as soon as you refresh. There we go. So I added crimson to the background, but as soon as I refresh this page, it'll be gone.
So we're classifying elements.
Yeah.
What's the shortcut again?
I don't. Is it the same on Chrome for him?
I always right-click inspect element.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's always what I do.
So you can right click inspect. I do option command I is what I do, but if you right click inspect,
Control. I think it's like Shift Control I or like Alt Control.
Yeah, for everyone else. command option I will open it.
Some really weird keys that I know.
Those are the Mac ones. I don't know what it is for Windows.
Right-click.
Control option I, control Windows I, something.
Yeah.
And what's this window called?
The Chrome DevTools.
Chrome DevTools. Okay, so I'm in those other stuff.
Here in Firefox, it's called the Firefox DevTools.
If you're looking, if you see these ats, those are media queries. That's saying at these specific sizes. I wouldn't worry about that for right now. That's very advanced, but
That's a preview for probably 3 classes.
yeah. But that's just, if you open it and you're on a small screen like I am, they've added a media query to a certain, they're saying, hey, when the screen is this size, you need to do the styling. So you might see that when you open them, depending on how big your window is. You can also make your DevTools larger, smaller, and you can see, again, styles change based on the size. Any questions? Any comments?
So just to say it again, for your homework, head back into the web page that you created already, right? And right-click.
Yeah, intro to CSS.
Yep. Head in there, add a whole bunch of colors, make it look bad.
Yeah, make it look like Space Jam.
Yeah, like the most gaudy 80s color scheme you can. Just go crazy with it. Have fun with it.
Ling's cars, that's
yes.
another good inspiration.
Also, check out the documentations that we're going to provide you. And also feel free to read through our materials to kind of reinforce these.
And I've slacked that link out to everyone.
It'll also be inside of the homework as well.
Yes.
So we'll have a new homework assignment that'll show up in GitHub.
Yes, it'll show up in your issues.
Yes. And if the notifications are set correctly, and my understanding is correct, you should also get an email about it.
Or notification Slack.
Yeah, door notifications.
Did everyone get their Slack hooked up to Nexus? Did everyone do that? Awesome. If you didn't, we can help you with that. That was where you needed to DM a message to the Nexus bot. So we'll just go through. We'll make sure that you've done it. That's just because then it gives you another update when you have things. I just know Greg pointed out that he was having trouble, and that's when we realized, as you are all on guest accounts, we needed to add the Nexus bot to the guest channel.
Cool.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to stop this recording.
Quick brain fart here. I'm on GitHub and I go to my user account and I go to, or has the assignments already been added to GitHub or no?
No,
Oh.
not an
Okay.
We'll
Well,
do
that
that.
explains why it's not.
Yes, we'll add
Okay.
that in
Alright.
a moment.
Okay.
And then is it due by the next class or?
Tuesday.
Okay.
Yes. So we'll be going over a bit more with CSS. We'll be teaching some more things.
Yes.
What?
Going to teach because because today we talked about colors and stuff like that, right? But as we know, sites are more than just colors. CSS also helps us with positioning our stuffs around the page. So is it side by side? Is it vertical? Is it left? Is it right? Is it up? Is it down?
And
Is it back
positioning is
forward?
its own class.
Yes. So we'll be going over that on Thursday. And then after that, your homework, of course, will be to continue to work on this expand your world and to add that sort of flexing and positioning to your site. So we're going to go over a couple more tools to give you more things to do. So from between now and Tuesday, focus on colors, make them pretty. Then on Thursday, from Thursday to Tuesday, focus on positioning. Just a preview of coming attractions.
I have an idea to add to that, but I'll tell you later.
Cool.
Yes.
I have a question that's not related to any of this, but when we do JavaScript, are we going to use jQuery or what are you guys' thoughts on jQuery?
We are not going to use jQuery. We're going to use vanilla JavaScript.
Okay.
If you have experience with jQuery, that's fine. If you know vanilla JavaScript, you can figure out jQuery.
It's kind of a
jQuery's,
shortcut. Kind of
yeah,
cheating in a way.
it's just a bunch of like short commands to do it. We're going to teach you how to do it without any of that. Vanilla
Do you guys
JavaScript.
feel like it's worth doing jQuery or
I'm actually going to say no. It's not. So a brief history for everyone else in the room who doesn't know that. JavaScript is a really cool thing, but there for a while it wasn't a really cool thing. But people built these things on top of it, like jQuery, to make our lives a bit easier. Right? jQuery was cool and powerful for a while, but then JavaScript got better and better and better and better and better. So now jQuery is really not good.
You will find it in a lot of older apps. Like I've never learned jQuery, but I've encountered it because it came with a lot of old apps that I've been hired to work on. Because that was the thing. Everyone hated JavaScript for a long, long time. And so that was a way to make it a little nicer. CoffeeScript was another one. You'll still sometimes run into them just because, you know, why fix it if it's not broken is kind of the motto on it. But if you know vanilla JavaScript, you can figure out jQuery.
But there were updates to JavaScript, right?
Yes, ES6.
What is what we'll be learning the latest and greatest JavaScript.
Yes. Technically, it's at ES8.
You know what? It's usually ES6 or not.
Not, yeah.
Because that was like the real big, like, this is the difference.
That was the big difference, but they do little updates every year.
And then would JavaScript be like the last 1/3? Is it going to be pretty evenly like 1/3 HTML, 1/3?
No. We're actually done with HTML, we're on CSS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So JavaScript would be like the second half of the class?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Roughly. And it's only roughly because we build on each other. Even though we are done with HTML today, we're not done writing HTML. Even though we'll be